Hi, my name is Melody and I am the CEO of Lacquer. I wanted to make this video because I've seen some comments about who I am, because I came out of nowhere, in relation to KL Polish and my new brand being compared to Lights Lacquer. So I just kind of wanted to make a video, explain who I am, and kind of tell my story. If you're here for some tea or some juicy drama, then I'll let you know up front. Sorry to disappoint, but that's not really what this video is. So anyways, I am currently on a mini vacation and I'm in a mountain desert. Is that a thing? It's the mountains above Palm Springs. And so I didn't bring any makeup with me. And I was like, oh, I should film a video and talk about who I am and why I left KL Polish and not wear any makeup for the first time anyone sees me. So here we are. To take it back, I was the Chief Creative Officer of KL Polish, but to actually take it back even further, I've been in the influencer / beauty digital space for about 10 years now. I started at what was very early days of Style Hall. And then from there moved on to 17 Magazine. I was the Chief Creative Officer for their YouTube channel and their whole network. And then I went on to work at several different consulting gigs doing content and digital strategy, influencer relational stuff. And then I ended up at Studio 71, which, long story boring, probably don't need to get into this, but I actually had worked at that company as a talent manager. I represented comedians and writers and directors before I worked at Style Hall. So I guess the start of it is I worked at what was called The Collective, and I was a talent manager. And then The Collective became CDS, which was Collective Digital Studios, which then became Studio 71. I remember it was funny, side note, this isn't why you're here, but I'm just gonna tell it all. I remember being in talent meetings and the digital team would be like pitching their digital clients, and the traditional talent team would endlessly roll their eyes and be like, what is this YouTube and digital? And no, we're not gonna put them up for real acting gigs. And like, no, nobody wants to sponsor their little vlogs. And it's just so interesting that when I worked there, the company was 99% traditional talent, music, film, TV, literary, all of that. And then they were just dabbling into, these were early days of digital. And then, I don't know, math, however many years later, I ended up going back and working there at Studio 71 as the Vice President of Fashion, Beauty, and Lifestyle. So anyways, while I was at that company, I had met a certain influencer, and she had not really worked closely with anyone in Hollywood. She very much stuck to herself and her family and just did her thing and became this giant, amazing influencer all on her own. And I just was really impressed with her. And so I made a really big effort to get to know her. And I knew that she probably didn't want to come to Los Angeles. So I flew to where she lived and we began a relationship. And that's kind of how things started. I ended up leaving that company to go work at a startup that was more focused on making content shoppable. We were still talking and I was still sort of helping her with different aspects of, her channel, just because I liked her. She wasn't officially a part of the company that I was working for, but I just thought she was special and I just wanted to help her. And so one day while I was working at this company, she texted me, which I still have that original text because it's special. And she had asked me if I knew how to start a nail polish company and that she wanted to start one. And again, the company I was working for, that's not what they did. We were in the business of sort of creating a platform that was going to become a beauty community, that was a positive community, that was, different ways of monetizing and yada yada. Those guys were really smart and I knew that they were business savvy guys and they could figure things out. And I had brought it up to them and they had mentioned that they were actually looking into manufacturing and that they knew how to start a nail polish company. I was kind of facilitating this in the very beginning. I connected them and we all met in LA at the offices that I had for the first time. And to set it up, we had brought all kinds of, and it's funny because I actually have footage of this very first meeting, which I'm not allowed to show. But I have footage of this very first meeting and it is so awkward because none of us really know each other that well. I had just started working at that company and they were in Canada. I had only met with Kathleen once in Miami and she had never met them. So we're all meeting for the first time and I tried to like make this meeting comfortable for everyone and I had all kinds of nail polish samples. So already going into it, you know, having prepped everybody, we were testing formulas at this meeting and looking at different colors and talking about timing. And fast forward, we launched the company. Me and my team in LA were working on all of the content. And the very first commercial that we shot for KL Polish, we had zero budget because we didn't know if this thing was gonna make any money. And I literally directed it. Had never directed anything. Now I've directed a few things, thank you very much. I had never directed anything. I had a cameraman. The people who were on my team in LA, who were my team for like that other company, and only KL Polish was only like a part of what we were doing at the time. Britta was in it, Jenny was producing it. Like we did it all hands on deck, $0 in this budget. And like, it's still one of my favorite videos we ever did. It was really cute and just authentic. It felt very sweet, like it was the beginning. And for the first year, things were so great. Like the relationship was awesome. Like business was handled in Canada. They really handled the operations and finance. And I and my team handled content, social media, marketing, giveaways, any sort of collaboration, any, PR list, ambassador list, all of the videos, all of the photo shoots, everything was us. Kathleen, she would kind of pick the colors, come up with something that she kind of was inspired by. We would put together a concept deck and then we would do a whole photo shoot and all kinds of content around it. And then we would just run with it. So it worked that way really well for about a year and everyone sort of was in their own lane and it was great. And now side note, I was pregnant at the launch party of KL Polish. So I went on maternity leave at some point. I guess I would have been, I'm trying to think, was this Aria? No, it was Edison, who was born in April. So I went on maternity leave like in April of 2017. And while I was on maternity leave, the Canada guys had come to me and decided that they were actually going to pivot away from their current business that I had joined and focus completely on KL Polish and building new businesses like it because it had become so successful and it was great. And like, that's what you do when you're a startup and, opportunities arise. Like we were trying to figure out ways to monetize with influencers and we found it. So everything we were doing before completely went away. Suddenly I came back from maternity leave and we were full-time KL Polish. Me and my team were. Meanwhile, Canada was figuring out how to replicate this. And I'm not saying anything that isn't public because I can't. I was an employee there. I was an executive there. But they have a website, what their business model is. And they decided that the business model was going to be finding more Kathleens. And I I playfully explained to them, if you think you're going to find another Kathleen, you are in for a rude awakening because Girlfriend was a dream to work with and they did not know how good they had it. And I had worked with lots of influencers, and not to say that all of them were difficult, but Kathleen was a dream. She just was. And so that's when things started turning, was when the focus was no longer KL Polish for everybody. It was them trying to figure out how to replicate this business model. And then me and my team were now full-time KL Polish. So we were in the nitty-gritty, and it became much more than content. We were doing kind of everything, you know, like really in the end of it, we were doing everything. So that was like sort of the genesis, and, you know, nothing bad in that part. Where my story comes in as to why I left and potentially why things went downhill for the company is, mind you, I was in this thing from the very first meeting, and I worked on it full time for at least a year, day in and day out. That was my full-time job. Everything else went to the wayside, and I loved it. And I was, you know, didn't really know this world until I was brought into it, but I had been a part of it since the beginning, and I feel like it was just as much my baby, even though I wasn't the face of it. I felt personally it was my baby, that I had seen from the very first thought of it in a text message to what it had become, and the meetings that we went to with major distributors, and, you know, flying to Chicago and going to New York and meeting with all of the publications and facilitating all of this. But it's important to note that I am the only one in that initial meeting that didn't own a piece of it. And it was not my baby. It was a job. I was hired at a startup, which, if you don't know, when you work at a startup, oftentimes you take less of a salary than you would at a corporate company, which I did from the company before. And so I was making less than I had my previous job. The company had pivoted a couple times, and the first year I had gotten a bonus that got me up to the pay, almost, not even totally, almost the pay I was making at the company before. So I was like, okay, it's fine. I didn't make any more this year, but it's a startup. At least I'm making about what I made at the company before. And then another year went by, and I was told that I couldn't get a bonus, I couldn't get a raise, because now all of the profits had to go back into this company. I just wanted to be paid what I was worth. And you know what? No, I'm not even going to say that in a way that's like, I wanted to be paid what I was worth. I brought them the biggest piece of their business. And I was running it day to day, thriving. We were growing. Everybody was loving the content, loving all of the stuff we were doing. And I was making less and less year over year. And I live in Los Angeles, and I remember was on maternity leave when we decided to go all in. So now I had 2 children in LA making less money, and it was like they were dangling a carrot. Oh, as soon as this happens, then this. Oh, as soon as this happens, then this. And I was just like, you know, I don't own this company. I don't own any part of this company. You could literally fire me tomorrow. So like, I can't be promised things for the way future. I was being recruited and offered jobs at other places where I would have made much more money. This was a conversation we kept having from Christmas, when I was supposed to get my bonus, to my 2-year mark, which was a few months later. And it was a continuous conversation that kept getting punted, or promises made that weren't happening. And I kind of had to make a decision for myself and my family. That brings us to the part where, I don't know if I'd call it an ultimatum. I guess it kind of was. I basically told my boss, like, listen, I can't afford to keep this job. I either need a raise or I need to find another job. However, you know, I was never going to leave Kathleen high and dry, and I wasn't even going to leave them high and dry. So I said, my husband and I have a production company. When I was consulting, it was through that production company. I was used to consulting, and we had other opportunities available. And so I proposed it as like, listen, I'm not going to continue to work as an employee at this salary and do all that I do. But I am happy to offer my production company as a outside vendor, and I'm going to charge you my rates. And I thought if I made it clear that I wasn't going to take less than I was worth, they would step up and say, you're right. But they didn't. What happened actually was my boss knew how close me and Kathleen were. And so he secretly flew to Miami to try and convince her to bring operations into one central location, being Miami, and that LA was too expensive and that they could replace all of the LA team with a local team, and tried to even brought people ready to go. I asked for more money and they tried to replace me, which is their prerogative. And I actually don't blame them for that. Like, it's business. They had zero reason to have any loyalty to me. We didn't work together day to day. We didn't have any sort of real personal relationship. It was business for them. It was always business for them. That's what I was attracted to in working with them, is they were smart business guys. I was expendable. And I think it's something that is so important. If I could just put this out there, because I've heard several people say this, like, oh, my job can't fire me because I'm too important to this project or this role or whatever. Like, I thought that here I brought them this influencer, and all of the comments we were getting on the content and all of the relationships I had with other people in Los Angeles to facilitate different deals we were working on, I thought I was going to have a worth that they saw, and all they saw was, she wants more money. We can do it cheaper somewhere else. Don't care that she brought it. And that's fair. It is. It's just terrible. You can't plan your life and expenses around what ifs. And so I was just completely fed up. And even though I loved what I was doing, it just became clear that, like, it wasn't going to change, and I was getting worked up about it, and I needed to go find somewhere that was either going to pay me what I thought I was worth or to start my own thing. And honestly, I was leaning towards start my own thing even back then. Okay, so rant over. Get what you're worth. Rant over. I had found out that they were trying to push me out, and I knew I wasn't obviously going to get the raise I wanted. So that's when I made the ultimatum, and I said, either pay me what I'm worth or I'm leaving, and I will give you, 2 weeks notice. I wasn't going to leave high and dry. Or, like, as an option, my production company will continue to do the content, but you have to hire my production company, and I'm going to charge you my full rate. So July, I stopped being a full-time employee, and they had hired my production company to finish doing the photo shoot and video shoots for Winter Rain and Zodiac. So we shot Winter Rain with fake snow in a castle-looking house in the valley in July. So it was like 90 to 100 degrees, and we were shooting a snow scene, and nobody knew that we were shooting it so far in advance. And the reason was because I was finishing out their content for the year so that I no longer had to work for them. So that's my story. Now, I can tell you a little bit of sort of that was definitely the moment that it became clear that even though this was technically her company, the person that she worked the most closely with and did not want to lose, they were not going to keep. And that, I'm sure there was a lot of other things that went into it. And I hate to think that I'm the reason that I don't hate to think that, because honestly, I think she's in a better place. Like, if it wasn't me, it was going to be something down the line that they didn't agree on. And, that's when you realize how much control you really have, is when things are not great. So now I will say, their own drama that they had with deciding to split and dissolve KL Polish doesn't really involve me. Like, that's not my story to tell. After all of that sort of went down, Kathleen and I were obviously still very close. And she hired me to my production company to do Cafecito. I had actually brought her the opportunity through YouTube, who I had close relationships with. It was very much what I spent a lot of my energy and time on. And she asked me to help her start Light's label, which was not nail polish. And I did. That's when I realized at that point, very much so, that I was not interested in that business. it just wasn't for me, and that's okay. You know, like I just wasn't super motivated by, you know, apparel and accessories. Clearly, I don't rarely wear accessories. And that's when I realized that how much I missed nail polish and how much I loved it. And the thing I love about nail polish, the colors are really what inspired me, and the themes that we would come up with. And girlfriend loves a theme, okay? I love a theme. And putting together the creative decks and like the whole campaign around a specific theme was just my freaking jam. And I loved it. Was never happier. They had just gone through a horrible breakup with a business partner, and they didn't want another partner. And I had just gone through a horrible experience of putting my everything into something as an employee and not owning it. And that's not what I was interested in. And so it was really sad. It was a really, really sad moment when we realized that it made more sense to do our own things. That's just life, man. You know, it was time. It was really hard for me to fly to Miami. I have 2 young children. There doesn't always have to be some big drama-filled ending, and it doesn't always have to be, you know, best friends forever. Like, I love the time in my life that I worked for KL Polish. I loved working with Kathleen. I loved helping her build different businesses and creating content, and we would have a freaking blast on set, and I wouldn't take that back for anything. Our time together was done. And okay, so let me back up for like a second. So we had already decided we weren't going to continue to work with each other because I wanted to be a partner. She didn't want a partner. A month went by. I was helping her finish out all the things that I had promised to. It wasn't like and I'm done. Like, I was still working for her for like a good month after we made this decision. And then VidCon happened, and I was meeting with lots of different companies trying to figure out my next step. And I ultimately just decided, yeah, I could make a really good salary working for a corporate company and be an executive again. And it's just not what I was interested in. And it took me taking all of those meetings to realize that. And I just really wanted to start my own thing. And then I was thinking about what I wanted to start and what I wanted to do. And I just kept coming back to how much I hated working in apparel and how much I loved working in nail polish. And so when I made the decision to start a nail polish company, I immediately texted Kathleen and told her, hey, I hope you don't hate me. I wanted you to know way before I even launched or from you found out from anybody. I didn't want you to think I was hiding anything. This is what I've decided to do. I think there is plenty of room in this industry for 2 indie nail polish companies. You know, our price points are different. Our audiences are different. And even if there's overlap, especially in the beginning, like she is going to continue to come up with really unique colors and always give her audience exactly what they want. And they're going to be beautiful, and she's going to do a great job. I have no doubt. And I love watching her thrive and succeed. I love it. So now I get to do what I want. And now I get to do campaigns that push a little buttons and are weird and loud. I love coming up with the themes and the creative around a different person. And I think we can get really weird and really fun and really different and I'm just like, my mind is just ecstatic with all of the ideas, and that it's not going to be just one tone. It's going to be, there's the opportunities and the ideas are endless. Like, I can't even, like, every time I think of an influencer and I think of working with them, all of the ways in which we could take their persona and make it into a cool campaign just like gets me so orgasmic. Like, I'm just like, I love it. Bailey was the freaking best, perfect first influencer because it was beauty, but a little murder mystery weird. And like, we leaned into that, and it was just so much fun. I can't wait for you guys to see our next influencer that we're working with. I will be doing collections in between. They will have weird themes. It's just like, I love a theme. just love a theme. And Kathleen is going to thrive and do her thing. And eventually people won't even compare us. But we did work together for very many years. So obviously there's going to be times where things overlap or we're going to have similar tastes, and there's nothing shady about it. You know that we pick our colors like way in advance. Like there's no way that I'm seeing what she's doing and then going, oh, let me go tell my lab to do that. Like there's just no way. Like I just think that there's room in this industry for 2 indie nail polish brands. Do what makes you happy. Just do it. Also, fun fact, I have been documenting the process of starting a business from scratch as a normal person who does not have lots of money in the bank. And I've been documenting from the ground, from the first bottle mocking up with masking tape on the bottle of the L to our, first mess ups and everything along the way. I don't know when I'm gonna put any of that out. It's definitely no Shane and Jeffrey level, but I just think it's interesting. And here's the thing is like, I think that theirs was so great and I loved seeing that. And again, obviously that's what I was trying to do when I filmed the first meeting for KL Polish is we actually went to YouTube Red to pitch them on the idea of showing the process of starting a brand. It was a little too early, but we had the footage and I just love what Shane and Jeffrey did. And I think it's fascinating, but that's a whole other level. That is like next level. So I think that it's just interesting to see different perspectives and levels and literally starting this thing from nothing and the bumps along the way and the wins and the exciting moments, like getting our first office space, which we just got today. So that's my story. That's how I came to be involved and why I left KL Polish, addressing the whole lights lacquer overlap, which, there shouldn't be anything there. Like girlfriend's doing her thing and striving. I'm doing my thing and trying. And we'll see where we go from here. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already to our YouTube channel. I'm trying to get it to 1,000 subscribers. That's right. At this point, we have like 650. So depending on when you watch this, you will know how much we've grown. But yes, please subscribe and hit that like button if you don't think I'm a horrible person that stole anybody's ideas.